Hi, I'm Angus Wright, and I also go by Angus By Design. And this is another day in a personal practice that I call my Satsang for One, where I listen to an episode of the Be Here Now podcast featuring Ram Dass. I journal about it. I write some quotes down in a physical journal, and I pull an animal oracle card in order to cultivate mindfulness and for reflection. I do all of this as part of my personal um, wellness recovery action planning and as part of my daily maintenance for my own wellness and health. And today's episode was pretty cool in that it's called Devotional Tantra and the Divine Mother. And what I love about this is that this video and this podcast seem to sync up with Mother's Day. So I think that's kind of special. So here we go. Let's take a look here. So, Devotional Tantra and the Divine Mother. So, the first quote is called Feeding Kali. She just keeps eating your karma. That's what Kali does. She just keeps consuming your impurities. Ram Dass. And the second quote is called Pure Shakti. When you see what the game is, you're being fed by the mother, and everything in the universe becomes food for you. And that's Ram Dass. And the third quote is under dealing with suffering and anger. So you know why you get angry? You get angry because something in the world isn't harmonious with how you think it ought to be. That's all you get angry for. Ram Dass. So these particular quotes, especially, they don't just sort of float on their own in context, right? Like they're making references to specific goddesses and deities and concepts. But when we talk about like devotional tantra, what we're really kind of doing is we're talking about honoring the mother of all things, the mother in all things, through like spiritual practice, right? It's like for folks who are Christians, for example, they might think of it as, thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother, right? So it's sort of honoring um, our parents, and then in sort of Christianity, the Divine Mother would be considered Jesus's mom, right? So like Mother Mary. Um, all sort of religions and spiritual uh, like all those paths, like they all have that concept of the mother and the father, because those are things that are inherent in all of us. Um, so the Divine Mother being the feminine aspect of the primal creator of the universe, or the spiritual spark in all life, essentially. At some point in the podcast, Ram Dass speaks of how our soul doesn't actually have a gender, right? It isn't like like it's essentially just our spirit, right? Our physical bodies have gender markers and things like this, but the thing, like they're just vehicles, right, for our experience here. Ultimately, when we leave here, we're genderless, right? So we're made up of everything in the universe. So with that, that energy into the cards. And given that it's Mother's Day, and given that I have a mother, as everybody has in some form or another, that's how we got here. That's the energy I'll put into the card. I will say that this talk gave me a really wonderful perspective when it comes to me and connecting with my mother and the other women in my world. But also in reflecting on how our current world and our current system, and by current I mean for as long as I can remember and recorded history, is the extra effort that the people associated with motherhood and the feminine have to go through as we all come to fruition, right? In these bodies, in these lives. And so as part of my personal devotion and my personal practice, I'm going to kind of fuel the energy with love and appreciation. Okay? Let's see who comes up. And it's the fox. The fox spirit has come up again. And so let's take a look with fresh eyes what the fox spirit is saying in terms of devotional tantra, spiritual practice, and appreciating the spark, that universal spark that we all share. So Fox Spirit says, think on your feet. The oracle message, be alert now, for Fox Spirit has appeared and you are meant to move swiftly. Let this clever spirit draw out your creativity as you adjust to rapidly changing circumstances with resilience, grace, and astuteness. Fox Spirit helps you to think on your feet, using your best judgment and wits to help you slip into a more advantageous situation. Now is not a time to hesitate, but a time for swift action of the mind. A time to think outside the box and notice the many ways in which you might make a move, aware of your surroundings, and always clear on what you deserve and wish to co-create. Trust that your cleverness, guided by Fox Spirit, will serve you well. The protection message here. Are you camouflaging yourself to avoid intimacy? Perhaps you're being too clever for your own good and playing games to protect yourself. Being dishonest with yourself or others can become isolating and create obstacles to true connection. Fox Spirit calls you to be attuned to what is happening within you and around you so that your quick thinking and creativity can lead you to better relationships and situations. You are called to use your Fox Spirit beneficially rather than in ways that keep you from experiencing what you want. Or perhaps right now you're realizing that a situation is trickier than it appears on the surface and you're afraid to make a move in case it turns out to be a mistake. Fox Spirit is here to remind you that when you are in alignment with the Great Spirit, the answers and solutions can come quickly and you can trust them. Don't overthink a situation in order to avoid the challenge of facing a difficult truth. Fox Spirit's creative nature will always be there to guide you and help you move quickly into better circumstances. So, of course, I love this. It's interesting because when, I think this is like the third day in a row, right? That this is the card that pops up. And when we're talking about everything in the world being connected by as one, right? Um, and the whole idea behind the oracle is basically like teaching us lessons or teaching me lessons about what I need. And often, those messages, like, to me, there's something bigger behind it. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time focusing and trying to think about those things, while at the same time not being so precious about those thoughts, right? Because it could simply be a simple message to just stay on track, right? And really, what I love about it is that it's all about taking action. So we can sit inside of our own heads and we can sort of ruminate and we can think back. And today's definitely a day, given my own personal experiences in life, where I can get easily caught up in the experiences that I've had, right? So when I think about my own relationship with my mom and what that looks like, and then when I think about her relationship with her mom, when I think about the other mothers in my world, when I think about the roles that men versus women play, fathers versus mothers, feminism, um, everything, violence against women, and I relate it to sort of, I kind of can whittle it down to like daddy issues and mommy issues and stuff like that, because that's literally the thing that I think we all sort of have to battle as part of our journey to awakening in ourselves. And I say everybody because I've met people who have wonderful mothers who've always, done all the things, at least in my judgments, right? And yet they still have an uncomfortable connection to that. Or I know men who are caught up in um, really polarizing what's male and what's female and who has access to what and what that means and entitlements and stuff like that. So part of today is really just going to be focusing on how can I express love and appreciation? How can I see the mother in me, right? Because again, on another level, on a soul level, we're that's part of who we are. Um, I am born of a connection made between my father and my mother. And that's a pretty universal experience when it comes to peopling, right? But it also means that this physical body, which comes from the soil and which will return to the soil, is a combination of my mother and my father. So no matter what my perceptions are, no matter what the things are that I conceive myself to be, I'm a non-binary man, right? Which means that I identify in the spectrum, but I clearly present as a male, right? I have all the markers. I have the gray beard. I have the deeper voice. But I can reflect on how I am part of all things creative, all things feminine, and how they're a part of me. I can celebrate that. And by doing so, right, I can take that pressure off my mom. Because sometimes, right, whatever's happening in our internal system of thoughts, memories, feelings, ideas, opinions, sometimes we can really dump that stuff on those around us who visually represent motherhood to us, right? So that's what I love about Fox Spirit. Think outside the box. Don't make it about others. Create a personal practice, right? A devotional practice that allows you to honor the divine feminine in everything, the divine mother in everything, including me. So, thank you, Fox. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. And if you like this video or anything I say resonates with you, please feel free to subscribe. Please feel free to leave a comment. Please feel free to Google me and reach out, because I'm just a person doing a thing, right? And I really appreciate your time. So, namaste.